Now normally when you're filming fast cars for YouTube, you have to wait for the weather to be nice and dry, but not this one. This one is always ready for action. So welcome to this video, which will come as no surprise to those few good souls who watched my Focus ST video. I salute all 800 of you. To those good people, here is the inevitable conclusion to that video, which was get a Focus RS. So I had this car for over a year now. I'd prefer to have some time with the car before doing a review where possible. So what follows are my thoughts after a year and a bit of ownership of a really fascinating car. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks as always for watching. So in the great tradition of four-wheel drive turbocharged hatchbacks, this is another one, and this is why in the UK a car like this makes so much sense. It's surprisingly well equipped actually, and quite refined. This is not a stripped out hardcore road racer. So the ride isn't feeling too bad today. There is an issue with the ride, and the seats are very comfortable. And I will always go back to these seats because you can adjust the height with this comfort spec seat. You can adjust the height, which is really valuable. It sits you much lower for taller drivers. It gets rid of that feeling of sitting too high, which you get in the Recaro shell seats, as they're called. They look a lot racier, but they're actually wider. They're better suited to the larger gentleman, shall we say. So this car is a fascinating car in many ways. There's a lot of hoo-ha out there at the moment for the new Yaris GR, and it's exactly the sort of car I would really get excited about as well. But I have to wonder what actually it offers over this. This has got a very sophisticated, groundbreaking four-wheel drive system with twin clutch packs at the rear. You've got adjustable driving modes which really do alter the amount of torque split front and rear. It's also a good deal more powerful than the Yaris GR. I suspect it's quite a bit more capable actually, but I'm not here to put the Yaris GR down. I think it's fantastic. I just wonder why there's all this clamour for that car when this car has been around for now since 2016, and that anyone lamenting the loss of these type of cars needs to consider that. This is a road that I've driven both the Integrale and the Mitsubishi Evo 6. Oh, it's that top end rush. This car is actually one of the reasons I sold the Integrale. This does everything I liked about the Integrale. Pretty much everything, not everything, but this does pretty much everything that the Integrale could. And as you'd expect for a more modern car, but it's very much a car of that type. It's got rally car genes, but strangely perhaps it's also got what I would call touring car genes. It's very pointy. They've set the front end up to be very responsive. And I think, like the Mitsubishi, what they've done, because they've got this stability of four-wheel drive, they've actually set up the Geo suspension geometry to be very aggressive. And this is really surprising for a stock factory car. Got a Focus ST ahead, which is what I used to have. So this car handles more like a circuit car than a rally car, perhaps. Suspension travel isn't as great as something like an Integrale. It doesn't have the ability to blast over lumpy roads in quite the same way, but it's quite a heavy car. You need the firm suspension to control the body, which it does very, very well. So the trade-off there is the ride is famously not too good. While we've got an ST in front of us, it's a good time to talk about the things I didn't like about the ST, which was the torque steer. And again, I thought the ride was too harsh. The ride is definitely not better in this. I don't think it's a lot worse than that car was on the larger 18-inch wheels, but it's worse. And I'm not sure actually it's the compression stiffness. For me, it seems like the rebound. It's the way the car bounces back from a compression that is a bit oversprung. Again, at higher speeds it works, and it needs firm damping because it's heavy. However, did it kill torque steer? Well, in standard mode, strangely and a bit disappointingly, if I'm being honest, it does still feel a bit torque steery. The beauty of this car is that you can literally dial that out with the press of this drive mode button here. So that's really valuable and really important for me, because it's not just a limited hatchback in that sense. It's not a front wheel drive limited hatchback. You have options because of those twin clutch packs and torque vectoring, real torque vectoring at the back. You've also got a much simpler steering system than the variable speed system you had in the ST, and the steering is much improved. That's really important. Particularly when you put it into sport mode, it gets a little bit heavier, but unlike some E-Pass systems where you go into sport mode, it isn't sort of gloopy, for want of a better word. It doesn't have it's a more simple system, and for an E-Pass car, it's about the best I know. I've tried. So yeah, with the 2.3 motor, we've got a lot more torque from a lot lower down. But unusually, the thing that's really unusual about this car, for a turbo car, is the way it goes, the way it pulls at high RPM. So you get to 6,000, or get to 5.5, and the boost needle actually goes again, and that's very unusual in my experience. So those people who have driven a Focus RS, but only change up at about 5,000 RPM or so, are actually missing. So I've heard some people get in and think, it's not that quick, it's not all that. I suspect what they're doing is short shifting. Now, those people who are short shifting their Focus RS in their test drive are missing out a bit on what happens at high RPM, and it's enough torque to actually feel it corrupting the steering. Now, that's one thing I think the Integrale for me was peerless at, and to be fair, the Mitsubishi Evo was the torque did not corrupt the steering. This has more torque, a lot more torque than Integrale, but it does corrupt the steering, but it's better in sport mode and above. So yeah, it's a very clever car, it's a very capable car, it's a very usable car, and I think it's an entertaining car. It's not just four-wheel drive set up for maximum safety. As Mitsubishi did, it's set up to take advantage. They've taken advantage of the fact they have the stability of four-wheel drive to make the car very, very agile, pointy and darty. So for me, it's a very strong package for a daily car. If I had to have just one car, I think I'd be quite happy with one of these. It's still as useful as a Ford Focus, which is no mean feat for a car that is a genuinely capable performance car. It's a very quick car, and the opportunities to really wind it out today are so few. So I really don't see much benefit in modifying it. So this one will remain stock. Yeah, so it's practical and useful, but it is also genuinely exciting and rewarding to drive. So there, greasy, wet roads. The car just shuffles torque around, find grip, which it does brilliantly. It's just really impressive the way it claws at the tarmac, even in really crappy conditions. Now a front wheel drive or even a rear wheel drive version of this car would struggle like hell today, and you'd feel the ES, you know, the traction control and stability control lights flickering all the time. This rarely does that. In fact, this has a slightly crazy feature of a light that glows orange, which makes you think at the time, when you first drive one of these, you think at the time it's a warning light. That's how it is. There's the RS light flickering. You'd have a real job to lose the front in one of these. It's incredible, superb front end grip. And this is where the ride starts to work a bit better. Above a certain speed, the damping starts to work a lot better. So there is a price to be paid for the low speed damping, which is hard. But it is all set up to work at higher speed, which is what you would want in a car like this. I've never driven this car on a track. I think it'd be quite fun on a wet track, but apparently these handle that very well. So again, that for me gives another element to how capable it is and how broad its ability is. So I think you've got all-weather British crappy B-road slayer like it is now, a savagely quick car on a road like this in the wet, and really impressive to come out in one in the wet like this and actually feel, even in first gear exiting a junction, how it claws at the tarmac and finds grip. I can't help but be impressed by that. It's very hard to find the space and the place to be able to use drift mode, so you need a lot of room around you. You need no other cars. You arguably really need to be off the public highway to use it. But what a cool feature. Amazingly, given the legislation going on in cars, that you could be allowed to have a drift mode. So for that reason alone, this car should be celebrated. The people behind it wanted to do something special, and I think I'm not quite sure why this car doesn't get the recognition even among Ford RS fans that it deserves. I think it's a really clever car, and more importantly, a really engaging car. I mean, there's no lag. So third gear, 28 miles an hour. Boost straight away. I felt that the steering corrupted a little bit there. Sometimes peak torque comes in, but I don't think it's actually so much steering. I think it's camber sensitivity. Again, I think the suspension geometry is so aggressive because they wanted it to be good on circuit that it will, yeah, it the steering tugs left and right, but it's following the cambers in the road. It's not being overwhelmed by torque. It's not torque steer in that sense. So there is a bit of an issue. Shall we try it in race mode and see if that's any better? Yeah, I think that is better. Although the damping is horrendous. Absolutely horrendous, because I'm literally being thrown around all over the place. But we can, of course, turn the damping off and keep the race mode on, and that is the so-called secret fifth mode on this car. Wow, yes. So that's in race mode. How about that for a hot hatch? How many hot hatches can do that? I mean, if you had the space and a roundabout with no one on it, you could have so much fun in this car. So it's really got an incredible range of ability, this model. Now, okay, yeah, this is a very rutted, cambered road, and yeah, you have to you have to hang on to the car, to the steering with both hands. It's not a car you can just casually blast around. You have to be aware of what you're doing, and you have to drive the car with give it your full attention, because it will try and deviate a little bit from the straight ahead. So as much as I would like to try drift mode today, I can't actually think of a place I can go. Well, that's never going to get old. I'm never going to get tired of doing that. It's just it's a strange sensation. It's a strange sensation being in a Ford Focus and catching armfuls of opposite lock. That's not something many Focus owners get to do or have done. But I rest my case, Your Honour. I mean, it can do that all day long, and it does it with a sense of balance, precision and control. So it's fantastic for that reason, and I couldn't go back to a front wheel drive car after this. I don't think. This car is so capable, you know, its repertoire is so broad. It is all the performance car I need, and everything above this is surplus to requirements, but of course there's a lot of fun in that. See that time, just all the power down. Amazing car. You have to wonder what Ford spent on development of this car. Huge amount of money, and it really shows. It's very well developed, thoroughly engineered by some very clever people. So yeah, I have to say today, again, when you're going a bit faster, then the niggly ride doesn't bother you as much. When you're just pottering about, it can be a bit wearing. But to begin with, when I first got the car, I was like, the ride is appalling. I was looking into suspension mods, getting new dampers for it. But I have to say, having lived with it for a while, it's okay. You know, it's tolerable. And I get the benefits from it that it's sort of justifiable. But anyway, the ultimate version of this car would, for me, have a button that allowed you to soften the dampers further, and that would make it one of the most capable, usable fast cars on the road. This is a very different character to a Golf R, and it's all the better for it, and that's a car I respect greatly, but this has just got more edge to it in every respect. And I know a lot of people couldn't consider it just on the basis that it's a chavvy Ford hatchback, but just in engineering terms they're really missing out. So yeah, it has lived up to all my expectations for it, and I had very high expectations for this car, and I think it's worthy of the badge, and it's a worthy successor. It's a worthy successor to all the great Ford RSs that came before it. And if this is the last one, then they went out on a high, in my opinion. I feel very fortunate to be able to still own a car that connects directly with that fantastic bloodline, and certainly the Sierra Cosworth, the two-wheel drive, remains one of the cars I would like to buy again, as in I would like to have another one in the garage. Finding a good one is the hard bit. So it goes without saying that I hope the Mk3 Focus RS is not the last Ford RS car. I think everyone would love to see a Fiesta RS for a start, and I hope in time we will see future Focus RS, even if it's a hybrid. But if it is farewell to the Ford RS, and this is the last car to wear the famous badge, I'll leave it to the Mk3 Focus RS to say goodbye in the only way it knows how.